I am not Lur, and I'm not from Omicron Persei 8. Hi, chat. How are you? Good to see you guys tonight. Got it. It's a little bit, might be a little bit of a lackluster. I don't know. Normally I spend the whole week to prepare for these, and I spent literally none of my week preparing on the stream for tonight. I was too busy working on another thing, which I will not disclose at this time. That'll be impacting next year. But some of you, I made this change tonight. A lot of times and dates next year went on the tentative roster, and more will probably be going to the tentative roster next year, but that'll be an announcement for later because I don't have anything in stone just yet. So with that, Nick, good to see you. Yangbot is in chat. Pico is here. Zosin was commenting about my Omicron Persei 8 joke, so he's got to be here. Yeah, I see him. There he is. So yeah, some interesting things tonight. Relevant to one of the things that I did this week was I sat on a sat on a panel that was basically talking to students about perspectives for historical careers and things like that. That might have been outside of teaching or outside of museum work, because most of the time when people think about history majors, they're thinking, oh, you're going to teach. Can't tell you as a historian how much that makes me want to punch somebody in the face. You guys really have no idea. It's one of the most infuriating things, and I hate it a lot. So don't ever come up to me and I mean, teaching is inherent, but teaching's inherent in everything. We've had this discussion before. One second here. We need our coffee and jazz music stuff. Ah, yes. An army historian, right? Yes. To a limited degree. So military history, which I'm a military historian, is kind of dirty if you're not. It's really strange. I feel like a lot of people get all weird whenever you put military in front of something, especially in the U.S. And some of the other Western European nations. People get really weird when you put that word in front of things. So, similar to how people assume that computer majors are all going to work for IT support. Yeah, man. Actually, that's not where my mind first goes for IT. My mind generally first goes to, oh, you're going to work in IT, so you're gonna build stuff and program, right? Which is also kind of stereotyping, but I mean, that seems to be a broader thing. I mean, you have to at least know, to be competent with IT support, you have to at least know a little bit of how it works. Guys, you work for Dell. True story. So, but our teachers can teach any grade level. No, they cannot. No, they cannot. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But yeah, no, there's a lot of stereotypes out there on stuff like that. But what's always been my struggle is my military history background outside of work is almost entirely Air Force, and I work for the Army. So that always gets people to laugh at me about it. It's just like, aren't you working for the wrong branch? Yeah, shut up. There's no need for Air Force historians around me, and I don't want to move, so... It's funny because it's true. But hey, chat, tonight what I thought we would do for this installment of Historic Affairs, I don't know that... Well, we might make it to 7 tonight. But don't worry, we're still going to be doing our video game stream later tonight. That'll be at 8 o'clock, but tonight what I thought we would do is... There's been a lot of people that really are kind of confused about the world around them, right? God, I think anybody who's ever going to watch this VOD or anybody in this chat is kind of confused about the world around them, right? Surely. So I thought we might take a look at that, because what I've tended to find a lot in my work, and just listening to students making observations in chats and discords and things like that, just general observations, that people have a very mixed perception of what constitutes history, what defines a historical moment, what really kind of somebody would look for. And we see this a lot, right? It's on Twitter rampantly, it's on Facebook rampantly, where people are just like, well, this is historic. Historic lows this, and historic highs that, and da-da-da. But is it? 9 times out of 10, that might be a shaky presumption. So we'll start with taking on the big one. COVID-19. Surely you guys are familiar enough with this mind-numbing assault of information that is out there for COVID-19. So I'm one of those people that I have heard so much information about it that when this new variant came along, I'm just like, cool, okay. So about the Lions game last night, I mean, I don't care anymore. Like, my interest and my concern and my ability to actually be worried about all this information coming in is gone. It's draining. But that doesn't mean that historic components of it are not still out there. And one of the big problems that we have is that when you have so much information overload, you tend to start forgetting and reducing what it is that you're taking in, or you become a hoarder. There's real no in between for a lot of people. So you're either a hoarder and you take in all the information, or you start turning off all the information and you miss important bits and pieces. One of the things that sucks about a world that is connected like ours, which is my contention that I really don't like social media, but one of the problems that comes along with that is that, generally speaking, you are on information overload, I can talk, information overload, regardless if you know it or not, almost 20 hours of the 24 hours of a day. Those 4 hours generally are when you are in deep REM sleep. So much so is your information overload, chat, that even when you go to sleep and you are dreaming, you are still taking in and processing the information that you got throughout the day. You might not even have clicked in and read on that article, but you saw that article probably at least twice or 3 times in your newsfeed, and your brain is still going over it. That's how bad the information overload is in the world today. And because of that, it's really easy. It's really easy for you to miss the very important things. Now, very important things mean entirely different things to entirely different people. So what I would define as important things are things that impact you. Things that impact you. So, for example, things that aren't important. Things that aren't important, a thing that isn't important, I'm going to piss off some of my UK friends. But things that aren't important for a citizen of the United States. For example, it is not important what Queen Elizabeth is doing right now. It's not important. It's also not important to know what Brad Pitt said. It's also not important to know what Alec Baldwin's comments were on the Rust set. It's not important. In the grand scheme of things, to you, personally, unless you individually are actively involved with that incident, it's not important. What is important is there a hazard on the way to work? Is my family safe? Have I talked to my family today? Have I talked to a friend? Have I checked in with a friend today? Things like that. Those are the things that are important. Things that you can control is where you should focus the bulk of your energy. Yes, that is correct, Yang. Now that being said, where does history fit into all of this? It's rather simple. If you see a news article, and I'll give you a good example of this, we have all this information, all these news articles right now coming out about Omicron variant, right? Of all those articles, there's 3 pieces to this that are important. What do we know about it? What do we still need to know about it? And is it more lethal? The answer to is it more lethal? No? Okay, that removes all the worries that I have about what, how high on my list it should actually be. The answer is no. So all I need to know is what do we know about it that's important for me? Like, how contagious or how fast does it spread? If it spreads faster, great, that's information to know. If it spreads less, then I'm not going to worry about it. Those are also the key things that you would take in on information for history. Okay, so here's what we know. Now, because of everything that we know that's going on, we know that the world is in a pandemic in 2021, 2020. We know that this is a pandemic that's been ongoing. We don't need to know about every single bit and piece. We don't need to know the updated numbers day by day by day by day by day by day. What we need to start taking in are outbreaks, key locations and sites of outbreaks. I'm sorry to say, Anime NYC, not newsworthy. Really not. One news article is fine, a notification. That's all that should have been said about it. Done. People shouldn't be freaking out about it. Go get tested. But unless there was like a massive outbreak of hundreds or thousands of people that came out of Anime NYC and it's confirmed, not important. In the grand scheme of history, it's not important. It is important to those individuals. So I want to add this to the equation, is that just because it's not important to you doesn't mean it's not important to other people. The problem that we have as humans is we have to process everything. We don't have the ability, well, we used to, but we largely don't have the ability to compartmentalize, put in little square boxes, and actually say, hey, this piece of information, not important to me, I'm not going to think about it, I'm going to carry on with my day. We don't do a very good job of that. So that's something to keep in mind as you're reading and wading through all the COVID information. So how do you identify a historic event then? Well, really and truly, chat, as much as what I just said was that not everything is important, everything also is important. Everything is important, but everything is also not important. What do I mean by that? Very simple. I'm a military historian. I have an art history bachelor's. It's not important to my specific, well, actually, it might, this would be a bad example because it actually is in this case. It is not in my specific interest to be out there collecting information, for example, on, what's a good example of this? If there was a massive let's use a train derailment. It's a train derailment, all right? This is a hypothetical train derailment. It happens in the Rockies. Two trains actually collide with each other. One of them is a passenger train that is carrying a bunch of VIPs on it. And a bunch of them are from the oil industry. They were on their way to a summit, blah, blah, blah. And it actually collided. It was on a wrong track and collided with two units of petrol that were sitting on a train track, and dumped all that petrol out into the Rocky Mountains Forest Preserve. Not important to me as a military historian to know about that and collect documents on that. Not important at all. Not my responsibility, not important to me, has nothing to do with my field, so I'm not going to collect on it. However, if I am an environmental historian, which those exist, that is absolutely important. It's absolutely important for me to collect news articles about that and maybe go out and actually collect the surveys that are done and the studies that are done on what the impact of this petrol, which we'll just say is 91 unleaded, that's spilled out into the environment. That is extremely important. Now, average Joe that's out and about. How important is this collision in the Rocky Mountains to average Joe? It should be important to the average person that lives in the region. It should be important to the average individual who has assets in the region, lives in the region, or plans to visit the region. Also, it is going to initially be important to everybody. Why? We want to make sure friends and family that might have been on the train are safe. Right? Information that's relevant to you and impacts you and that you have a limited amount of control over. The other thing, finding out about how much material was lost. Why is that important? Well, if it's petrol, that could cause the price of gas to go up. Now, if I read it and I find out that it was just 2 cars, I'm probably not going to be too worried about it. But if it was 20 cars or 50 cars, that might be a little bit different. But by and large, I shouldn't have to stay up at night thinking and dwelling about all these individuals. You can feel sad and remorse for somebody without having to dwell on that. And a lot of people have problems with that. God bless her. I love her. My mom is notorious for that. When the condo complex in Florida fell, she was almost giving me like hour by hour on this. Oh, you know, did you hear this? Did you hear this? I just can't imagine, this and that and the other thing. Well, you're not supposed to have to imagine that. That's not what you need to be doing. Because what you're doing then is you are causing undue stress to yourself, regardless if you know that you're doing that or not. You're wasting the resources, of everyday stuff. I mean, you could arguably say that about anything that your imagination has to do with, but when you inject yourself into the situation of the story that you're being presented, you are actually creating more worry and stress for yourself. So be very careful when you do that. One of the things, too, that I have noticed in a lot of Discord communities especially, and that's probably because I'm active in Discord communities more, is individuals, and Yang and Pika are in here, and they're both mods in one of these servers, and I'm not gonna call this person out, but I hear about this stuff a lot. I don't matter. This mentality, I don't matter. I'm not having a good week, so that means inherently I don't matter. Or something along the lines of, I'll never do this, or I'll never do that, or, nobody's going to remember me for this, or for that, or for whatever, and especially in our community that we all originate from, not our Discord here, but the Discord we all originate from, we get a lot of people that are just like, why would so-and-so ever want to talk to someone like me, ... Well, regardless of what you think, you are part of history in some shape, way, or form with everything you do every single day. Even the days when you don't go outside. The days when you're not even being healthy. The days when you think that you're taking the break that you're under the presumption that you don't need for some reason. Even those days, you are part of history in some shape, way, or form. Well, THK, how is that possible? Glad you asked, person who doesn't exist. The reason for that is because if you interact with anybody, especially in this connected world, you interact with anybody, you are inherently, yes, borderline creating a butterfly effect with it, in that you have interacted with another person, and that person's going to interact with another person, and regardless of what you think, somebody's going to have seen your message. One of the biggest complaints that I've always seen is somebody that's just like, well, nobody notices me. Well, yeah, I'm talking to you right now, am I not? So you're going to be involved with history regardless. But that leads into the other part of the equation. Why would anybody want to talk to you? Well, who do you want to be? You know, if anybody's heard me complain about History Brother, you guys know that he makes me want to throw my head into a brick wall quite often. But what I realized is he's recently going through some not so great stuff. And what I caught myself making a comment to the History Mother was, I know what he wants to be, but he doesn't act like somebody who would be that. What does that mean? It means you need to emulate who it is you want to be. And if you want to be somebody that influences history, or influences the course of history, then you need to act like that. You need to act like it. And that doesn't mean go out and start being a dick. It means you need to start acting, generally speaking, those individuals are mostly influential individuals that have a change for the more positive nature in society, generally speaking. But you need to fit into that role. So if you make yourself be somebody that history will forget, for starters, history isn't going to forget you. A book might, but history won't. But you need to kind of, like Yang said, you have to dress for the role that you want. You also have to have the attitude of the role that you want. You can't just, I suck. I'm going to be the greatest book writer ever, but I suck. It's okay to have doubts, but just going around all the time saying that you suck isn't actually going to get you there. One of the things that happened recently is Sondheim, composer, recently passed away. And I watched his interview with Stephen Colbert, and one of the things that he said is, he said, write for you. In general, write to make yourself happy, because if you can't make yourself happy with what you're doing, you won't make anybody else happy. So that's the starter. And then he threw in, the added joke. He's just like, and then, I finished my first musical, which wasn't very good. But he's saying that on the other side of about 60 years worth of experience. At that moment that he finished that, however, I bet you anything that if he was still alive and you were to ask him about that, he would say that it was an overwhelming, phenomenal feeling of accomplishment. So much so, by the way, guys, he went down in history as one of the greatest composers of the modern era. So, let me catch up here. It's not that they don't notice you, it's more they are not concerned enough to respond. Yes and no. It's that you have presented yourself as either impatient or as somebody that is seeking the attention rather than earning the attention. There's a difference between earning attention and seeking attention. Seeking attention is a problem. Earning the attention is something that you should do. It's kind of like earning respect. You don't just get it, you have to earn it. Well, you have to earn the attention too. You can't just seek it and take it. Especially in a place where people can ignore. Not playing the role he wants to be. No, he is definitely not, and he makes me want to reach through digital wires or reach across the table and slap him, except he kicked my ass in return. Be what you want history to remember you for. Yes, that's right. You always want to... You always want to try to encompass, as an individual, what you want to be and what you want to remember. I would say, so, you know, respect as a human, I'm a terrible person to ask when it comes to that, mostly because, in general, as a matter of rule of thumb, I generally have, a very low, limited amount of respect, but for just like everybody on the whole. And when I say that, it doesn't mean what you think it means. What it means is that I'm going to remain very skeptical until you earn it. Now, as a professional, however, that's totally different. However, once it's lost, there's a problem. It's going to take you a long time for you to get respect back in the professional world from me. But I would say you have to have like a baseline level of respect for everybody. But if you don't have any respect for yourself, you aren't going to be able to give respect to anybody else. So, and there's a lot of issues with that too. And that leads me into some of the other things too. Some of the things like, well, why would so-and-so ever want to talk to me? Because you're another human being. It's perfectly natural for humans to want to interact with other humans, at least until you break them. So, oftentimes we find ourselves in a situation, well, there's no reason so-and-so would want to talk to me. Well, is that just because you don't think that they would ever want to talk to you, or because you don't ever see yourself in a position or a situation where you would want to talk to them, or they would want to talk to you? Injecting yourself into a situation, which is why I really hate convention meet and greets. Don't get me wrong, guys. I know a lot of you want to do conventions and things like that, but like convention meet and greets to me are some of the weirdest and most awkward interactions I think I have ever had the displeasure of being. And it has nothing to do with my interactions with some of the people at them. It just has to do with the fact that it is a forced environment. It's not natural. It isn't natural that I just go and just see these people on display and then walk up and talk to them. That's just weird. A panel makes a little bit more sense to me. And indeed, you see more panels nowadays, but it's just the very strange phenomena of meet and greets is just a very, very bizarre kind of situation. I'd rather tell you to fuck off as a human, but not so much as a professional. No. It has to do with, I keep people at arm's length generally as a general rule of thumb. Double so whenever I can't put a face to a person, and then triple so if that happens to be online. So Yes, meet and greets are the paid for senpai notices me thing. Yes. I think that it is much more rewarding, and you get much more out of it if you are actually engaging with another individual on a much more natural basis. So a good example is, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here, but I'm just giving you an example of the kind of interactions that I think have more meaning. For example, my team here, so my mods that I have, it's a lot more normal and a lot less awkward for me to just talk to them than it would be for me to like pay them $50 and be just like, OMG, can I please have you as a mod on my channel? That is so freaking weird. You know, that is weird. That is a strange situation, and I've never really understood it. And I realize that I go into those positions sometimes too, where I'm on the other side, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, A, please don't call me sir. B, please don't put Mr. in front of my name. And C, for the love of God, just talk normal. Because there's this weird matter of perception that for some reason the person on the stage is for some reason more important than the person in the audience. I've got some news for you folks. The people in the audience are the reason that the people on stage end up in history books. If it weren't for the people in the audience, there wouldn't be anybody on stage. So you really need to reevaluate the importance of your own power and what history remembers too. I think a lot of people don't put enough emphasis on their own self-importance sometimes. But I think it also goes to the other end. I think sometimes people put too much emphasis on their own self-importance. You need to learn to find that happy medium. And there are a few individuals that I'm thinking of in particular, and I'm sure both Pico and Yang know exactly who I'm referring to when I say you have to stop caring to a certain degree what others are thinking of you. And you have to stop letting them be the influence to your personal identity. If you are able to determine that you are happy with your own personal identity, and you are able to determine that your personal identity is who you want to be, you've got it taken care of. Now, that doesn't mean that your own personal identity doesn't have destructive traits. What it does mean, though, is that you are on the right track. You just have to identify what those destructive traits are and remove them. Nobody is above correcting themselves. One of the greatest things that I think comes out of a lot of things with military history is you see a progression of leadership across the board. You're talking about military commanders whose careers span 40, 50, sometimes 60 years. And it's really interesting to see these individuals. John Pershing is one of them. It's very interesting to see Pershing, for example, go from a young boy out in the middle of BFE, who somehow makes it to West Point, graduates. He's a second lieutenant wet behind the ears, and by the time we get to the end of World War I, he's the first ranked 5-star general in the U.S. military. You have to also remember, too, whenever you look at an individual who is something that's, doesn't matter who they are. So is it Omar Bradley? Is it Curtis LeMay? Which I hate Curtis LeMay, but we've got air power fans here, so is it Curtis LeMay? Is it Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense and head of the CIA? Is it President Biden? Is it we'll go into some of the actors world? Is it Brad Pitt? Is it Is it Faye Mata? Is it any of these people? You have to remember, guys, that all these people at one point in time, and I apologize for the imagery that I'm painting here, all of these people at one time have shit their pants in their diaper. Okay? Just like you did. And every single one of them, at least at one time or another, was very concerned about where they were going in life and was questioning themselves. And were questioning if they were good enough. And didn't know about the history that was around them. And didn't know what history had in store for them. All of these people did it. They were all where you were. Every single one of them. And I guarantee you, too, that when General Pershing was out in bumblefuck nowhere, he probably did some shit that you really didn't, you probably would not have expected John Pershing to have done. So I've got his memoirs of his life at a young age, actually, so I can tell you with authority, there's some shit in there that I'm just like, whew, I don't know if I would have put that in a book, but okay. So you have to kind of remember that there are some things also in history of an individual that are uniform to everybody. So what does that really have to do with history in a modern world? Why, it has to do with, we're going to come back to it here, information overload. What you have to remember about all of that stuff that gets posted on the internet is A, anybody can do it. B, everybody's doing it. And C, because of how the human mind works, either all the really good stuff gets posted for the individual, or all the really bad things get posted for an individual or for a situation. Always. Always. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful because whether you know it or not, whether you understand it or not, or are conscious of it or not, you are thinking about all that information, like I said, 20 out of the 24 hours of the day. And I don't have any statistics to cite for that, but I would venture to gather with you that that is likely the case. Up to 20 hours a day. Some of you who don't sleep, like one of my mods who shall not be named, 24 hours of the day. And what goes into that is the fact that you start questioning your own history and your ability to write new history. Because, again, like it or not, you're all part of it. Every single one of you who's watching, and all the millions of people, billions of people who aren't, are part of it. So, yeah, chat. Didn't you like the warm and fuzzy feels of tonight? See, and then you've got the people like me who come in here and soapbox shit like I just did. And you're just like, oh god, this guy. This is clearly one of the ones to watch out for. I'm never coming back here again. Unfollowed, unsubscribed, report. So, the unique way of collecting information, though, today is simply you have to be careful with how much you're saving, how much you're keeping aside, things like that, because you're not going to be able to save everything. You have to be, we've talked about this in a number of different streams before, where you have to pick your battles, and this is one of the situations where you would definitely have to pick your battles. You can't always be saving it. You can't save everything all the time. So, but is the soap spicy? Probably. Probably in my case. So chat, what do you think, aside from COVID-19, I want to ask, I want to ask you all, before we wrap things up, I want every single one of you to comment and tell me of an event a possibly historic event that you think might be going on right now that is not COVID-19. And I'm gonna preface this by saying that I am willing to bet large sums of money that as long as it's a current event or a recent event, you will not post incorrectly. And you can I'm giving you free reign to be spicy if you want to. This is one of the rare occasions that I'm going to do that. But yeah, just comment it. Just one. All the school shootings, yes. Yep. And I say that, I agree with that too. Drinking water in one of the 50 states being contaminated in some way. Yep. Absolutely. Clean drinking water in the 21st century apparently eludes many locations. That would definitely be a historic thing, and that somebody would definitely want to look into and do a historiography on. Teacher shortage. Good one. Yes. Sports. Absolutely, sports could be. Supreme Court reviewing Roe versus Wade. They can review it all they want. I don't think they're going to change it, though. But yes. Yes, that is definitely historic as well. That's a good one. But yeah. So for anybody to say that at any given point in time that they aren't necessarily living in the midst of history is wrong. One of the reasons that I wanted you guys to try and think of stuff that wasn't associated with the pandemic is to let you know most of the things that you guys just threw out there, including the ones that you're still throwing out there, those would be happening regardless of the pandemic. A lot of those would be happening regardless of the pandemic. So it's always going to be around. It's always going to be something for you to keep an eye out on. It's always going to be something that is ongoing, active, and ever-changing in everything that is the world around you. So, yeah. Chat, do you have any additional comments or questions for this particular installment? Eventually, I plan to have a camera on this segment, but yeah. Cryptocurrency has an impact to how we handle some finances. Yeah. That one actually bothers me a little bit. But I'm going to be interested to see how cryptocurrency changes in the coming years. I don't like cryptocurrency. NFTs too. I don't like NFTs. But yeah. Wildfire. Can you repeat the whole thing? How about you watch the VOD, Spud? Pico, did you set it? Yeah, guys, absolutely. Well, hey, guys, for real though, if you ever have those times where you have this thought of not being good enough, or history won't remember you, take a second to think back if, just take a second to think. Because even the people in the audience are influencing history. Alright? Being in the audience doesn't mean that you're not part of history. So. Okay, chat. Yeah, I think everybody wishes that they started mining Bitcoin forever ago. This one? Yeah. Chat, here in a matter of about an hour and 15 minutes, we are going to we're gonna free the beast. We're gonna free the beast that is Shion. Once again. We'll be doing Tales of Arise once again. So, joke back in 2020 that I should have invested in AMC. All right, yeah, that one's a little painful. Yang, I ain't gonna lie, I would be kicking myself on that one too. But yes, so later on tonight, in about an hour 15 minutes, we're gonna be back. We're gonna be playing Tales of Arise, and then tomorrow around this time, we will be playing Genshin Impact once again. I am hoping that I will have an announcement for you guys of some big news sometime next week. There is a reason that schedule for 2022 has been delayed. There's going to be a lot of streams that get cut. I'm going to tell you that right now. But we're going to be changing times for a lot of streams. Yeah, there's a lot of changes that are going into 2022. So just keep your ears out for that. And one other thing too, I'm going to bring this up a couple of times because we have a few streams between now and then. There will be an article coming out in a couple of days on the site about Pearl Harbor at 80. That'll be on the website. We'll make sure no longer. It's actually a little bit more prestigious than that, Zosin. Thank you, though. But guys, listen. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get some dinner. I am going to then probably also take a walk around my house a few laps, even though it's dark outside, and then loosen up for Tales of Arise. You're mine! Anyway, guys, if those of you who won't be around for it later tonight, though, hey, take it easy. We'll see you maybe tomorrow or sometime later next week. And just if you need to remember this stream ever, it'll be on YouTube, so don't you worry about it. With that, guys, we're gonna just flat out end on a history stream because Tattooed Historian and none of my other history streamers are online. Those are the only ones that I raid after history streams. So I'll be back in about an hour. We'll see you guys.